So here we are at the fall retreat, sharing the progress of each of the 8 cities. And I was very fascinated to see the similarities in some cities and the differences in others. So as we know, site specificity or fine-grained approach for each city is very important and not one size fits all. We sent out a questionnaire how lighting is going in your cities. I really stand for placemaking after dark. Often on the placemaking projects, we're planning for great park activities and artworks on the chain link fence. I love that. Markets, which are generally during the day. And then all of a sudden, from my point of view, let's wake up and say, what about placemaking at night? What about the night? What is it like to travel through my city at night? And if you would just close your eyes for a half a second, and then I'll go into the slides that you sent to me. I want you to close your eyes. Turn out the street lights. Turn out the pedestrian lights. And of course, you're in your main street or your favorite place in your city. You've turned out the main lighting. Now, turn out the moon. Do you feel that it's attractive or unattractive? These are big cuts. We're going to talk about some of the nuanced ways to do lighting as we go, but the big cuts are, how does it feel? Is it attractive? And I got something from Fitzgerald, who wrote this up. You stand up and tell us what we're looking at. We have mics in the room, so we can hear you.
That is the front of the Grand Theater in Fitzgerald, Georgia. It was following an event that we had snow day, and we had an event inside the theater as well. And the lighting was, that was the first event we had after we installed the cafe lighting.
So tell me, are you happy with this? Or you want to improve it? Or tell us how it fits the criteria of lighting for you.
Okay. Well, prior to installing the cafe lighting, we had just the street on the overhead arm light as the reproduction street. And while those provided adequate lighting, it didn't have much atmosphere. So we wanted to put in the cafe lighting stretched across the street in order to give it more of an atmosphere, more festive feel that we leave up all year long. And that was phase 1 of the project, and we have actually since then installed more of those down an additional street as well. So it's actually more lit, and also in the adjacent park we have added more cafe lighting.
Okay, now you're getting here. You're getting to cafe lighting, which I'm going to go into in depth. I call it string lights, festoons. In Britain and Australia, they call them fairy lights, and we're going to talk about the fairy lights. Tell me why the cafe lights, you're adding to them. You actually think they're great, so you're adding more. What is that?
People started gathering.
Okay.
People started, after we put those in, people, that didn't go downtown started gathering, and we had a lot of social media posts after that asking for us to put up more.
I love that. I'm going to quote you. That is so spectacular. People started gathering. I had no idea that she's not a plant, because wait till you see how much I'm going to talk about this. That is great. So when something succeeds, like the earlier conversation about impact and measuring, we want to do more. Now let's look at the next one. And this is a continuation, right? And what I read was that you have an aspiration instead of the scary alley. is to, in fact, install more of these string. Tell me a little bit about the conflicts.
What we have, the alley that you saw in the previous slide actually has, is a service alley as well. And so we still have semis that make deliveries through that alleyway to an adjacent restaurant. And so anything that we do there is going to have to be 12 feet or higher. So that's something that we're going to have to address.
That's the envelope that you have to deal with.
Right.
And I call this the back door alley. Okay. Okay, so Young Harris has a very different point of view. Young Harris representative, can you stand up and talk to us a little bit about your goals and aims, because I think this is quite different than the last one.
Because we are in the mountains, the stars are a huge part of our tourist attraction, and the light pollution washes them out. So we want to make sure that we don't have the light pollution. We want it to be visible from the ground, but we don't want it to block out a major component of where we're at. This is Blue Ridge Mountain EFC drone shot that was taken 2 nights ago from their campus and everything. And you can see, and it's well lit, and she'll show you, maybe, I don't know if she'll show you now, but there is a lot of light on the ground, but from overhead, you don't see the light. This is really important to us. We're actually working on a night sky ordinance for both the cities and the county, because we like to get night sky certified up there. It'll take some time, but because that is such an important component of our tourist up there, we want to make sure that stars are always visible. And we have found that the chain companies that have a tendency to come in, they want to be brighter and more visible. They don't care so much about the attractions of what we're trying to retain in the area. But this is a great example of when they built their new campus, what they did to the facility.
Perfect. So there is actually an internet for dark preserves and parks that are intended to draw more visitors. Now, you might think that's a little bit of an oxymoron, like more people. But I think we're also working through the idea of cutoff or lower light levels in towns, and then really, I think, able to reduce greatly in these parks and preserves. And you can read up on those. Are you getting credentialized?
Not yet. We are just starting the process. We're looking at the ordinances now, and it's a 3-year process.
Perfect. Okay, and then you had, then you had this building, which I want to say seems very bright and very cheerful.
That is a ground level. This is a ground level picture of the same overhead, the drone shot you saw. This is what it looks like from the ground.
The ground.
Yes, so that is a ground level view of it and everything at night. So you can see where it's not polluting the air, but the ground level is still visible and is safe.
I got you. So this is a good distinction. Thank you, because I didn't fully get that until you explained it. Right. So on the ground is kind of what I stand for in terms of community involvement and what's it like on the ground. And do we feel safe? Do women especially feel safe? You guys don't even know what we go through, and so that new focus on women and girls and safety is just so important. There's a great divide between men and women in terms of walking, sidewalks, walkability. So it's a very important issue. And I think, there are what we call conflicts as well about how bright to light our cities versus lighting, which we hear actually does feel safer, versus, saving energy, which is so important. So it's a complex and important design form that creates placemaking. So this, of course, is our aspiration. I ask for the bad, the good, and an aspirational. Obviously, the future is being able to gaze at the stars from certain areas in Young Harris. Jackson. Is Jackson in the house? Please stand up and tell us a little bit about this space.
Yeah.
And
so the lady next to me here actually owns this building, but
okay.
I'll do the talking. So at dusk, I took this picture. This is Buddy Blues Cool Licks. Remember Jackson and its Stranger Things connection is what we're trying to this is their local ice cream shop. They just recently did a mural. If you're familiar with the show, I'm not so much, but you recognize those characters.
How many people are familiar with the show?
It's not.
Okay, good. Excellent.
It's
All
not quite done just yet. But anyway, it's awesome. They've got a little inset portico there at their ice cream shop, so extremely well lit, inviting place there. You can see the signage there. So that was our best example of good lighting there.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes, ma'am, do it.
What is good in your mind? Give us someone earlier said atmospheres, which I think is one of the most important words in our vocabulary. Tell me about why is this
inviting, safe, well lit. Those adjectives come to mind.
Okay, anything else?
Well, I was gonna say inviting,
Does anyone else have some ideas about why is this good lighting? Raise your hand or just
I can see the art.
art is visible. Same one, two art is visible. Okay. Any other reasons? Yeah.
It focuses on the subject or what you want to have a feedback or bounce back.
Oh my God, are you a designer?
Not as an artist. Well, sometimes, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, so light does focus our attention, and good lighting both focuses our attention and only our attention. In other words, stray light, which we're going to talk about, is not visible light. We want to focus attention. That is fantastic. Okay, and then we have, I think, another alleyway. Let's see.
And I was so scared to go at night, I had to go during the day.
Right.
But this is the alleyway behind one of our, backdoor alley behind one of our quadrants of the downtown city square. This is the location of the first season of Stranger Things. There was a fight scene there behind the theater. And this is that location. And we've noticed, especially this summer, tons of people from out of state, out of country, coming to take pictures at different sites where
this show
is one of those top 5 places. But at night and during the day, it's just kind of grody. So we need to do better there.
So that's a really good point. We have 2 alleyways, and I know of alleyway projects all over the world. People are trying to transform their alleyways. Are there other cities here that are working on alleyways, sort of back streets, alleyways? No one else is working on alleyways? Okay.
We don't have any.
You've got trees, right? From what I can hear earlier. Yeah. Okay. All right. So alleyways isn't a trend. I thought it might be. Great. All right. So let us look at Clarkson. And talk to me, Clarkson. Who's Clarkson?
Right here.
Oh, perfect. Tell us, your description doesn't seem to fit the photograph to me. Like, this is our well-lit place.
It is. I think
Talk to us. Yeah, talk to us.
It's so much traffic. I didn't want to get hit. That's why I kind of parked, but it's really well lit. That's kind of considered our downtown area, our town center. If you look or head past the lights, the traffic lights, that's our downtown area, and that's like our most lit area. That's like our top needed space that most of our residents like to come, pedestrians walk that way. Our business on that street, so it's well lit. They feel safe and welcome. They're always here, night and day.
Right. Are those globes? Are the streetlights globes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this explains something. One thing that I say is it's so hard to photograph lighting,
Yes, it is.
right? And for the artists in the house, it's also very difficult to paint or draw lighting. It's so ephemeral and so atmospheric. It's difficult. So what I focus on with night walks that I do with people, I'll tell you a little more later, is elevating our vocabulary of light, because at least we can speak how we see it. And, that's super interesting. So your text is like, we're connecting in the walking path. There are decorative lights. I'm like, where are the decorative lights? And they glare through the camera.
That it could be added
home that I was looking at was, Decatur Square, over there downtown Decatur.
Okay.
They have these, I can't even describe them, they're like pyramids, yeah, those are really nice, and they're full of light, and they're in that downtown area, so like, place those, that would be nice.
Gotcha. I read that wrong. Decorative lights can make it. But, globes are considered decorative as well. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about historic decorative and other decoratives later. But what I wanted to say is that I also love the globes because they're like the moon. They're like an old symbol, And not all of them are beautiful. These are very cool to me. They're too cool. They're not inviting in that sense.
Yeah.
If it was warmer, it would feel like a harvest moon.
Yeah.
And it would be softer and warmer. But that taking photos of light is very difficult, but describing it, you did a great job. Let me get back here.
Thank you.
Because you're absolutely right about all of this, that you want to create meeting spaces at night.
Okay.
Okay, what's our problem here?
That's how this bike trail. It's right in front of my job, the city hall. At night it is very dark. As you can tell, it's not a street light at all. It's almost at the end, and our bikers go through there all the time. And I just find it maybe being a safety issue, and not having not even at the bottom of the path or even at the top of that, and those type of lights kind of guide the light. So I think that's the worst. This is my opinion now. I hope to see that. This is my opinion. So that's a car light that's making it bright where you are? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to fit. So that's retroreflective tape that is
but it's not enough. It's
glowing,
not
but it isn't enough. It's kind of all by itself isn't enough.
Just thinking about the bicycle is, riding at night, the safety part of that, being able to see when they're riding down and just feeling safe when they do,
Anita, I know it's a brand new installation. Is it possible that it's not complete and that lighting is a component? Or
I'm not sure. I need that.
okay.
I don't know about that part.
Okay, so we're going to kind of race through, and
I kind of messed up on that one. I'm sorry with the aspiration, but I guess I was this is actually one of our main walking streets. Our pedestrians very heavy with a lot because a lot of our apartments are on this street, and we have a lot of pedestrians that walk all the time up and down in this track. And you also have the cars. It's like you have two main roads that go on the opposite side of the park. They're parallel, but they're on the opposite, and they go back and forth. It's like driving. And so you have pedestrians also crossing the street. And so my aspiration, I kind of didn't understand it all the way, but I would love to see more lights in that area because we have a lot of pedestrians and they cross. And it is a crossing walkway, right, that crossing road right there, but it does not have any type of.
so I'm going to speak to this.
Yeah.
And I also suggest for nighttime design, which is broader than lighting design, that we include traffic engineers, and include lighting designers and engineers. So this is fantastic. I'm so glad that you all responded. Now we're going to move into some of the ideas I want to impart to you. First of all, why nighttime design? You've heard me mention it a couple of times at this point. Starting from the bottom, the reasons we have nighttime design, that is an overview of urban lighting design, is to increase safety and welcome. I like to use the word welcome because it covers all the bases. Safety could be crime, it could be collisions, fatalities, problems that are physical, and it could be the feeling of fear, the perception of fear. And I think if we begin to make our nighttimes welcoming, that is going to be reduced, as well as traffic accidents being reduced. We want to enhance public health. What is public health? Walkability after dark increases our physical exercise, and it's just a great thing, especially since the pandemic. I don't know about you, but I've seen in the world, and I've seen for myself, that night walks are a wonderful way to get exercise. There's also mental health, and that's walking in the city with your friends. That's perceiving the people around you as your friends. That's encountering new people. So we can add to our public mental health through better lighting and nighttime design. And then finally, the reason we're all here is augmenting economic activity through more cultural events, which you are working on and focused on, and through later opening hours for retail, and through other kinds of commerce and actual economic vitality, as well as saving energy, let's not forget, which also saves money and our carbon footprint. Okay, so here's the little about a night worker. And here we're talking about the first and last mile from the parking lot to work at night, from transit to work at night. And what we want to talk about with the first and last mile is safety, directionality, attraction, and respite. I have so many people when I do workshops all over the world say they just want a place to sit down at night. When can they bring their kids and have a moment of rest during the winter? So these are the people that we're designing for and that we want to think about with urban. From shift workers at night to ADA inclusive families, tourists, and nightlife lovers. Some of us must go out at night because we work at night. We're medical workers, sanitation, security, etc. And some of us love to go out because we are nightclubbers. We like to dance. We like to hear music. And these are the sorts of people, all of us, who would like to be out at night. So here are some little transformations. I don't these screens that we have in some of the big cities to make our shops secure, but this is an actual situation where in the Bronx there's a strip of LEDs lighting up the pull-down fences. Little shops along the way really give us a moment, a destination as we're walking. And the point is that the edges of our streets are the street wall. And if we're walking on sidewalks, we want our street wall to feel safe. We want our crosswalks to feel safe. The EU, they have zebra crossings and Belisha beacons, which are these globes at the top of those stands. You can see where the crosswalk is. You can get there. And here I like to say that a lit doorway is a friendly doorway. It's an inviting doorway. And again, you have sort of stepping stones which make you feel that you understand how far you're going to be walking. These are private light additions to the street. They're not street lighting. These are privately provided. Now, this one I love because actually the deep the window when the space is lit up inside creates this amazing mosaic of light on the street. And these are all quite simple. Finally, I heard you talking about food trucks. I didn't see the plan for the jamboree, but I also, in New York City, we have individual street trucks, food trucks. And to me, it's an oasis. Again, if you work late, you're leaving the shopping late, or you're getting home from somewhere, the food truck can be an oasis, a place to go. There's even one of these in Queens where they have a television. So you can really head towards the food truck. And then this is quite a famous Seattle. And if it didn't have the light, it wouldn't be half as friendly. Here's my quick, I don't know if you've ever heard What Time Is This Place? Kevin Lynch, landscape architect, but I like to kind of make a little joke on that. What color is this place? And that street, again, the street wall, which are the shop windows, we can go ahead and kind of create a measuring tool that is pixelating and stitching the street wall to see how colorful it is. Are we invited to walk along, even at night when the shops are closed, to come back the next day? Or are there gaps, dark places where we don't feel quite as safe? Now, I wanted to talk a little about Georgia Power and the provision of street lighting. Okay, and I also understand that some cities have other utilities that provide the street lighting. I wanted to learn from Neely about what they provide. And what's important for you to understand is that there are street lights, that's this, I always love to do this, the Cobra heads, that provide the general. Often we have what is called decorative lighting, which is more the acorn shape or the lantern shape on the right. Let's look at that a little more closely. GP, or Georgia Power, has a really nice website that I've listed up here where you can design a light. So they have these great illustrative places that you can then pick different lights, okay? So what you need to know is that the regulated modern street lighting, I'm going to circle that for you, the street lights are actually regulated in the sense that there are foot candle guidelines or lumen guidelines, a certain brightness that you need to have, especially cities, to reduce accidents and increase safety. It also becomes an insurance and a liability issue. So some street lighting is regulated, but other more pedestrian street lighting is not regulated. It's really much more about the sense of place, which we all love to talk about. And here, if you go on their website, you can literally try out different poles and different lanterns or post tops. Okay, so you've got more modern post tops like this one right here. Yep, and then you've got the more historic reproductions here. And it's a nice way to familiarize yourself with the possibilities. And then if you have a manager or an account manager that knows Georgia Power, they will work on the selections of these poles. Okay, now we get to have fun. Okay, that's not we need street lighting in our streets, but what about the fairy lights? They're economical. They're enchanting. They're easy to install. They're inviting, and there's an endless style and color available. Just look, there are round ones, there's the little candelabra ones, aka holiday lights. So what we found during the pandemic is that a lot of restaurants moved onto the sidewalk and street to document that, and all the kinds of string lighting. And I thought to myself, everybody knows how to hang string lights. Bring out your 12-year-old. We know how to do that, right? To suspend the string light. What if we were more innovative and more creative with these lights? So I'm going to just zip through these, and then So we connect across the street. We create a canopy of light. We can create a portal of light. I was amazed when I went into this portal that there were the little flowers. I had no idea. I just thought it was magic. It turned out to be these little funny little flowers. Here, scaffolding. I haven't seen a lot of scaffolding. You use scaffolding when you face the buildings and stuff for repairs? Yes, good. Well, I like scaffolding for two reasons. One, it creates these great shadows during the day. And two, it becomes an armature for a canopy of lights. outlines. Everybody loves to outline their shop windows, the restaurant windows. Outlines are a great way to use the string lights. And then, believe it or not, super sophisticated, suspended art. So you can really use string lights in many ways. After we realized that DIY lighting, aka string lights, could be a momentous, easy to do, the cafe lights that we were discussing earlier, and really inviting. I was so excited to be invited by East Harlem to do a project. This should have music. Where's my music? Not happening. That's too bad. I might start that over. There we go. I'm going to start over. So one thing is that we invited the community to braid lights. So we're talking about braided hair, and we're talking about 150-foot string lights that it took 3 person per strand to braid. And kids, a lot of kids sitting on the ground. So community engagement plus lighting, I just think, is the best interlocking project. And we're almost done, so I brought you some progress shots. This is under an overpass. Okay, it's going to be a year long in the installation, and it was vetted by Department of Transportation as well as a couple of nonprofits, and I'm just so excited to continue the experiments with string lighting, and I think you should too. I've also done work with other nonprofits with, so this is for a gala that we do every year. We create string light chandeliers. And another pilot, lanterns with the community. So here you see an architect and his students and a young economist and a designer in Cartagena in Colombia, working with the colors and forms of the community. And then we actually did hang these lanterns up, and there's a whole pilot that goes with it and a film that I can send to Sadie so that you can all see that. What if we created from a very homogeneous, modern lantern something that was matched into the town of Cartagena? So that we want to move into something more long-term is to start with envisioning and do that with our communities. One way to do that is by walking at night. Okay, if we're afraid to take a photo of the alley by yourself, completely understandable. That's why we need to walk at night and discuss how it feels. Some people love the dark. Some people love the light. In fact, I do a game just like that. In fact, in this room, how many people love the light? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people love the dark? How many people are in between? And it just goes to show us that it's perceptual. Okay? Our love of the light and the dark is perceptual and very personal. Just like all of the community engagement that you do, it needs to be granular. You need to work with your communities to get it right. So we move on to master plans that you might have for your city, a nighttime master plan or strategy, which generally starts with a light walk and moves into mapping and moves into projects. That might be permanent street lighting, that might be public art placement or lighting of monuments, that might be shop window competitions. One light at night, I say, or say one light at night would make a tremendous difference if every shop had one light at night, plus a great designed window. Then we also have smart lighting, which is connected lighting so that that's a good reason. Also, reduction of energy consumption is good. Georgia Power's connected all of the lights of, not Georgia, but Atlanta, yeah?
So the smart lighting controls for Georgia Power is for the entire state within our service territory.
Okay, that's amazing. You guys were the early adopters of connected and smart lighting. That's true. I, again, want to add to that. So it reduces maintenance. Things work better all the time. They don't break because they get fixed just before they get broken. And you can turn them off at certain times to save energy. There's a lot of good reasons to have connected lighting. My reason to have connected lighting is to work with the communities to define the states and the atmospheres in any given district, to apply dramatic lighting to the entertainment district, to provide a sense of moonlight to the park, to provide a fairly bright lighting around the hospitals, but not too bright. So in a sense that smart lighting is available, it's dimmable like the theater, and we can create atmospheres in the future. Now here's something that we want, and Neely's going to love this. So surveillance, most of us do not like. And in San Diego, it turned out that the community was not involved at all in their new smart lighting system. And it all sort of happened under wraps. And then it turned out that the community found out that the police ran the smart lighting system. And it was like they just rose up and they said, oh, no smart lighting system for us. And it got turned off. So I always say community engagement is not only fun and not only needed and results in better projects and placemaking, but it's also a prerequisite. It's necessary that we are transparent in our engagement with citizenry. I'm going to do my quick light pollution or light obtrusion selection here. Now, when we talk about light pollution, which is really light obtrusion, which means it's obtruding, the light is in the wrong place. It's not where we want it. I'm just doing this really quickly. So when we talk about light pollution, we talk about exactly what it is we're talking about. Sky glow, which is what this town, remind me again.
Young Harris.
Young Harris wants to reduce sky glow because that's extra light into the sky. We don't need that light in the sky. So we can name that. We can name it sky glow. Glare is light that hurts. Okay? So when you look into an old LED light, and I heard that you guys are improving even on your LEDs, we're converting to LEDs in a lot of cities, which reduces maintenance and lifetime, and it's a longer life, and it reduces needs for maintenance as well as energy. However, many of them are glary. I don't know if you've walked around, and when you just slightly raise your head, you're like, whoa, that is just too glary. It hurts my eyes. On the other hand, holiday lights, you're looking directly into, and I think you generally feel it's very cheerful. So glare is a bad thing. Light trespass is the one where if you live in a city and the street light goes in your window, that is trespass. Or if the cat turns on that light across the street that your neighbor has, and it comes on and bothers you, that is light trespass. Clutter and visual smog is just the idea of having too many lights popped onto storefronts and residences that just basically looks ugly. All right, so those are some forms. And there are things we could do about it. Okay, they're fairly technical, but when you're designing for a city like I do, we can do a lot of light planning in advance and calculations and add mechanical attachments and optics to reduce these light obtrusions. Okay, we're almost done here. We're going to go to Q&A. I just realized that I didn't really introduce myself very well. So, I know, because we were having so much trouble at the beginning, weren't we? Yes. I was a little thrown off, I have to tell you. Anyway, I am a lighting designer and a nighttime designer. I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I work internationally, and I work with engineers and city governments, architects, landscape architects, and the end user, as we say, don't we? The people who are going to be in the light and the people who take care of the lighting to make sure it works all the time. I design for infrastructure, overpasses, bridges, landscapes, waterfronts, and streetscapes, because that's where people are. And if you haven't noticed, I really love to relate to people with light. So let's talk about how we get there with lighting. Envisioning, which I've talked about a lot because I think that's what you guys are up to right now. Strategizing, broadening it. What can we do with our vision? What is our master plan? Nighttime strategy. Pilots, trying things, okay, experimenting. You'll see a couple images in a minute. Designing, that's the part where we actually draw and we do calculations and we specify lights, and then implementing, that is constructing a project. So an example of envisioning is this night walk and a walk. Also here, this was on the Forth and Clyde Canal in Scotland, in Glasgow, where we had all kinds of participants, including the lock keepers who were opening and closing the locks, as well as kids whose school was on the towpath on the way on the canal, as well as young adults who were learning to teach community art. So this project gave them, a thing to do. And then at the bottom, you can see the cartographic view of the locks where the project was located, and the golden fishnet of light that when the water went down, you could see the fishnet, but when the lock doors were shut and the water came up, it disappeared. Strategizing and plans, the Global Nighttime Recovery Plan during the pandemic was one of those strategies. Also, there's another one in Santa Monica. Each one is very specific to the city or to the need after dark. Here's to just quickly show you, this is the before and this is the after. This was done with the Department of Transportation, who, unlike this city, the utility provides the street lighting. In some cities, the Department of Transportation does, and this is an underpass that, that's the before, need I say more, and that's the after, including horticultural lighting. And then for flash design process, this is part of their logos. They've always got these pointy kind of arrow shapes. So when you look up, you see that. That's my sketch. And then this was a sketch somewhere in the middle of planning, and that one didn't work out. So the iterative process that you guys know in your design projects for your events and that sort of thing, you have to keep refining it. And then finally, let's say implementation. Corridor in Seattle of transparent coil drape panels that are illuminated, each one and onto the ground. So can you imagine if you're walking through that passage and the light's coming down to the ground, you are immersed in light. You become part of the sort of performance of the movement of people in the evening. And finally, I was talking to here, and we were talking about the overpasses, Steve and I, and so many interstates, highways. and how you have so many overpasses because of those interstates. And these were measuring the tidal flow of the Clyde River and the traffic and comparing them over time. So that, and I hope you all have a bit of a night vision at this point so that we can move into our questions and answers. Okay, I struck you dumb. I struck you like you're mute. You're all muted now. Okay, so we have the microphones. Here we go. Yes.
I have two questions. One is going all the way back to the what looks like stained glass lights. You call that a decal?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so you know what's really interesting? That is retroreflective surfacing. And retroreflective beads, you often see them in your crosswalks. Do you guys have crosswalks here that glow a little bit when the light hits it? Yeah, that's because they're like lenses. They're little beads. They're silicone. And when the car headlights hit them, they glow back. And that, I don't think I said decal, but that tape has retroreflective properties in it. And it's pretty amazing. The only difficulty, if you want to start designing with it, is that the viewer their eyes have to be in a line with the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection and vice versa. So wherever the light's coming from, it has to come back to the eye the same way. So sunlight is all scattered and there's a lot of angles of light, and so it works with those crosswalks during the day, and then it works with the lights from the car headlights, and because you're sitting in the car at the same angle. But that doesn't always glow. You have to do some experiments.
Okay, cool. And my second question was the lights that were sort of looked, like like written, and then the words, the language.
Yeah.
What is that? What kind of lighting is that?
Okay.
What's the structure?
The one that went like this is one of my projects, and it was a ripple, and that street runs over a river, and the map of that area, it was a pilgrimage, also had this beautiful ripple shape. So that was that one. And then the other is with the words. That's in Torino, in Turin. They have one of their famous light festivals, which I didn't go into. Okay, there's a lot of stuff I didn't have a chance to go into, but light festivals and lantern festivals are great activating events. And so that one's from Turin in Italy. Yes?
I think we're probably
In your experience, have you ever encountered a city, or have you installed an installation of like street lighting that wasn't lampposts but was actually wall lighting? And like in Europe, and I just went to Vienna, they have pendant lights everywhere hanging from the buildings. How do you negotiate with the property owners in the building?
There's actually two of these alternatives. I'm going to talk about both of them. One is kind of the string, it's like the ultimate string light. It's called catenary. So there's a live wire, in a sense. There's a fed wire going across the street with a pendant in the center. So you'll see that in Copenhagen. They're famous for that. And it's just very useful. It also cuts off the light from going up. So those are great. They're just these wires with the pendants. Now, what you're talking about is bracketed light. And there's a whole different set of policies and rules. In France, you'll see them as well, which is, as of right, the government can use your wall. Okay, so in America, mostly we wouldn't kind of go for that. So you'd have to do a whole lot of negotiation with your neighbors, which I think is a good thing, where you could do a whole system of those bracketed lights, and they can be gorgeous. I think it's just a great idea. They're smaller scale for small streets. You can use more industrial lights as well on the sides of walls and buildings. Not as beautiful, but also, again, more human scale, which I'm sure you talk about that in your placemaking. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. More questions. I love questions. Forgot. say? Any questions for Neely for Georgia Power about street lighting in general?
Well, okay, I do too. Again, I definitely.
Oh, two now. Yeah.
I'm your Georgia Power colleague over here. We haven't met, so you might shudder at this a little bit. But generally, and specific to even our products, when I look at stuff like this, immediately my mind goes to maintenance.
Yeah.
And, even just from your standard street light that is sort of relatively easier to maintain to sort of these more elaborate things. So in terms of cost, and it seems like there's always something out, and that has its own connotations when a light goes out. So what is your, do you have conditions for success or best practices to sort of have a long-term plan for maintenance that's manageable for a smaller community or what have you?
Yeah, definitely. The crazy, uptown flash project that I showed you the video, those LED string lights, and not all string lights are LED, right? We figure with the number of hours that they'll be used that they'll last about 10 years. It is a one-year project, but sometimes short-term projects stay up. We also will have a maintenance plan where the installer will come out every 3 months and check the installation. Since I personally do infrastructural sites, ruggedness, IP ratings for water incursion, there's salt water, which, you need certain finishes for. Long life, low maintenance is always an ideal, and for some jobs, a requirement. Okay, so I have two things to say. That is, what you select for the project, but it's also an owner's manual to understand when replacements need to happen. And also for projects which are public art, and generally, hopefully, you have a public art group or association that commits to the conservation and the maintenance. Take it away, Neely.
Or just call me. Right? So.
Or just call him. Yeah.
Yeah, just call us. So just a little fun fact about Georgia Power as well. And much like many myself, I didn't really introduce myself very well. So let me digress just a little bit, and then we'll come back. So I am one of two managed accounts lighting executives for Georgia Power Company, and I work exclusively with municipalities and schools for all of the state of Georgia. Prior to that, I worked very closely in the communities with individuals such as yourselves on various types of projects. So when it comes to knowledge per se, I have a lot of it when it comes to lighting, and really how it really helps the community. And so Georgia Power is the largest street light provider, LED provider in the entire world. We were the pioneers. And I think Lena spoke about it.
That part.
So we have nearly 1 million assets on our system. And part of the reason we have that many assets is because individuals just don't want to deal with it. There is a lot of work surrounding maintenance. And so that was part of the reason why Georgia Power decided to invest millions of dollars into a system that we're not charging our customers for. There is no separate line item for smart lighting controls. We did it because we knew that it was the best thing for our customers. And it helps us to know what's going on with fixtures prior to you even knowing what's going on with it. We know. So when it comes to the maintenance piece, that's what we do really well. To answer your question about maintenance, most people don't want to have to worry about when is it time to paint poles. I don't know, right? I mean, who does that? No one knows about when is the fixture's life at the end of its investment life. How do we get a new fixture 10 years from now that simulates what no longer even made, right? It may not even be in production anymore. So those are things that we do really well, and we work very closely with multiple manufacturers to make sure that we create a standard that really helps complement what you want in your community. Is Powder Springs in here? So I live in the city of Powder Springs. And so,
Right.
I do, yeah. I love Powder Springs. So one of the things that my children always say when we go downtown Powder Springs, they say, why are these lights yellow? Right? Or they will remind me that the light is out. And so you all absolutely can't stand it, because I couldn't stand it when I got the phone call, when people call and say, when are you going to fix this light? So LEDs help us to help you when it comes to maintenance. One of the biggest misconceptions in the marketplace is that LEDs do not fail. They fail. They do, right? They're man-made. It fails. We also actually have some of our vendors. You probably have heard or seen about the purple lights. That's coming from dephosphorylation. Everybody hates that problem, right? They started out white and they turned purple. Well, how did that happen?
We have a bunch in Thomasville.
So you have some in Thomasville, right? Yeah. And so one of the really nice things about Georgia Power's maintenance program is, guess who has to pay for that? Yeah, we do. Yeah. So we get with our vendors, and of course we're going to pass that cost on to them. But those are the realities that we deal with when it comes to maintenance of street lights, in addition to the one-offs, right? When perhaps late at night, someone has a little bit too much to drink, and I don't know why, but they are always drawn to a pole. And it's always the one that costs $10,000, the pretty pole, right? That's the one that they're drawn to for some reason. Okay? So I won't go on and on. Did I answer your question, my colleague?
I promise we didn't plan that.
We did not plan that.
I was really thinking more of all the fancy, like creative things, but that was excellent.
Okay, thank you. And I saw another hand somewhere from Powder Springs.
Well, yeah, Powder Springs. Whether you're in St. Simons or in your Powder Springs, all of your city lights are usually established, or they're being reestablished because you're redecorating the streets. So when they decide to do a crosswalk, such as one in Powder Springs and St. Simons and in Buckhead, they now have the blinkers that come on, and they are distracting each other, and therefore they make that area that you're supposed to use as a crosswalk, because you are supposed to be in the vision where all the lights are blinking that somebody wants to cross, but it's not a stoplight, it's just a blinking light to tell you that somebody is just hit the button to cross. Who should they call first? Because usually the Department of Transportation or the street lights, because they're in direct conflict. Did you have any resolution for it? Because whether you're a driver or you're city management or you're just like me, I'm just a volunteer, you want to be a safe place for somebody who's been in the brewery too long and is crossing.
That's the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the hawk beat it.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that I recite this, so correct me if I'm wrong, okay? So the challenge that you're experiencing is you have these new lights for pedestrians. They push a button. The intent is for it to illuminate an area or flash some sort of lighting.
On either side, like a pole.
Okay. So it's not a pole, but it's just a light. Okay, yeah. So if the conflict is because they can't see it very well, one thing that we can do, and I don't know if this is a solution. Of course, I have to look at a lot more than just what's going on in Neely Head. One solution could be that we could dim the lights. Now, the challenge with dimming lights is that at some point, there's probably going to be some sort of conflict, a major conflict. And then we get into what was the IES recommended light levels for low, moderate, or high impact areas for pedestrians. So there is a bit of risk mitigation that the city, as well as Georgia Power, will have to look at to make sure that we keep you out of court and we stay out of court, right? And more importantly, that we keep the community safe. Now, outside of that piece, just at first look, that's what I would recommend is from Georgia Power, how can we help? We can and do have the ability to dim lights. Now, the lights in the downtown area of Powder Springs that you're speaking of with the crosswalk, I'm assuming what you're talking about with the old City Hall was, is that right?
Yeah, where Ruben is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so in that area, all that lighting is all HID, and it really needs to be upgraded to LED. We cannot dim HID fixtures. They have to be LED in order for us to dim those. But we can have a broader discussion about that a little later. It's easy because I'm only 5 minutes from you now.
Well, I've just noticed that people, no matter where I am, whatever city, and they just install these crosswalks are wonderful for pedestrians, especially in certain places. But when there are streetlights that are in conflict and they're on there, you're just seeing a bevy of lights and you completely miss that these are blinking at the side.
Yeah, and there are some other technologies out there as well. For instance, with smart lighting controls, you have some cities that when you have emergency vehicles, the lights in that area all turn red to let everyone know, hey, get out of the way. In Atlanta, nobody moves for emergency vehicles, right? I'm not quite sure why, but no one moves out of the way. But there are things that exist from a technology standpoint that could address it. But I would have to know more information before I can give you a true answer of what the solution would be.
So our hour is up. Did you have a burning question?
I do. All of our communities have vacant storefronts,
Mm-hmm.
and you showed a slide that showed where you kind of activated that
Yeah.
with light and it had a nice glow in the street. How was that done? I used like a filter, cover filters for the,
Oh, you mean the roll down gate?
well, I'm talking about the windows, and then how do you backlight that so you get that nice glow?
That will have to wait for a design session because I'm not exactly sure. But I do think that merchandising plus good lighting works together. Oh, I know which one you're talking about. I didn't do that. That is from London. That is a photo of, that was the decal, by the way. That was the decal on that great big window.
Yeah.
And the point was just that there must have been some track lighting pointing at that window that cast on the ground.
So then if you got empty space in your downtown and you want to
Great idea.
accommodate that, that's a great way to do that, and it's fairly cheap.
You know what? That is such a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, I mean, maybe a workshop that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you can get the community involved in those kinds of things.
Completely a great idea. Thanks, Steve. Steve brought me into this whole thing with you. So thank you, Steve. I am going to wrap it up. We have people on the line and maybe the session's even stopped at 1 hour. I just wanted to say what a pleasure it is to discuss placemaking after dark. And I just hope next week or even tomorrow, use the term nighttime design and see what people say. And see if you can describe in a few sentences what might be your approach to nighttime design in your city that you're working on to activate and to enlarge the economy, to enlarge cultural events and the citizenry, and to invite people. What kind of nighttime design and lighting would you do? And I will leave you with that, and thank you.